Successful people learn how to make their mind work for them. I'm David Nagel, and this is the Successful Mind Podcast.
Hey everyone, this is BT and welcome to Inside the Episode. Today, David and I are going inside episode 169, How I Can versus Why I Can't. And David, you told a very amazing story that I've heard you tell many times on this particular episode. I absolutely love it. And the reason I love it is because, you know, your power of belief was so much stronger than everybody else's around you. You were able to use it to your advantage and sort of being able to sift out the noise of people telling you there was no way that this was going to happen. So for the people who are just listening to this right now and want a quick recap, you had quite the travel adventure that somehow saw you get from Atlanta to Chicago in the dead of winter when it would appear that you had no shot. And anybody who's flown through Chicago listening to this podcast knows that that is a common occurrence in that part of the country, especially in the winter months. You used your power to get there, truly. You know, I'm not going to say you controlled the weather, but damn well you pretty much controlled your destiny in that moment. What was that like in the moment when so many people around you were telling you it wasn't going to happen, there's no shot? And these were people who were associated with the airline. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about what that was like again?
Well, it was frustrating. I mean, that's one of the things that it was, because I was really trying to hold this. I took this very seriously. Like when I started making these changes in my life, if somebody said, "Here, do this," I took it very seriously. So I was also in a place of doubting whether or not this would work. Could this happen? And I'm like, well, I can't do that. I can't let that creep into my mind. And everybody in the freaking airport was bitching and moaning about the situation. I mean, there weren't even places for people to sit. They were sitting on the floor because so many people were in the airport. They were stuck. So it was very challenging because there was almost nowhere to go. I just kept walking around so I would not get. You know how you get engaged in with somebody, like if you're sitting somewhere and you hear people having a conversation, you start listening to it. You're not even wanting to listen to it, but you can't help not listening to it because they're talking so loud. Well, in the airport, when everybody's around you like that, it's hard to get away from it, you know?
It sure is.
So I was like walking in and out of bookstores, or I would go sit in the bar and have a drink or something, or a sandwich, and, you know, somebody would come and I would move. It was challenging.
Yeah, because it's all around you. Like, you can't escape it. And, you know, a lot of our listeners, I'm sure they travel quite often. And you know that airports can be equally parts joyous because people are seeing each other for the first time again. But on the polarity side of that, there's a lot of chaos that goes on in an airport. And there's a lot of angry people and entitled people and frustrated people. And for you to be able to maintain the belief, you couldn't have allowed a single shred of doubt that you were not going to get home. No, I was determined. Yeah, it's almost like it reminds me of, you know, you just being like encased in bulletproof glass from a mindset standpoint, where these people were having their own negative conversations, but you're completely blocking them out. And in the meantime, you're focused singularly on getting out. And that's exactly what you did.
One of the things that I didn't mention in the story was this, that it was a time in my life where I lived in a very small house that I was raising my kids in. It was like a 980 square foot ranch house. And we had finished the basement, so that doubled the size. But basically it was a small house with 6 people in it, right? I did not have much in my life that was visually stimulating from abundance or an opulent perspective. So when I was at this event, we did it in a 5-star hotel, and the rooms were gorgeous. The ballroom was gorgeous, and I had this image. I wanted to carry this home with me. It was important for me to take this experience home. I was clinging on to every experience that I could get at that point. And when I got into that hotel room and there were toenails on the floor, and it was just a sleaze bag hotel. I mean, I've never stayed in a hotel that bad in my life. I mean, I've been in some low hotels, especially when I was a kid and we didn't have any money, When I saw that, I was like, I am not letting this into my consciousness. That's the thought that I had. I said, I'm going home. I'm not letting this into my consciousness. I'm taking that experience from the 5-star hotel home with me, and I'm going home today.
Yeah, this isn't the one I'm dragging back.
So I got very, very indignant about the whole situation and that this is what I was going to do. What I think was what happened in my mind was that I didn't have a reason prior to that going to that hotel that caused me to want to get home that bad prior to that. So when I had this experience, I became very aware that spending 3 days in this nasty hotel was going to change. I'm like, how am I going to hold the image of where I was sitting in that place?
It's gone.
Right? It's gone. It's gone. And I really wanted that to carry over, that energy to carry over into what I was going to do when I went home. It was really important to me. So that gave me the why to hold on to that energy in the airport for 12 hours until I could get on the plane.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, and you've never been someone who takes another person's belief over your own. I know that about you. And
Yeah.
I imagine that was what was happening when the airline representatives were telling you there was no way that plane was going to leave. And then you couple that with what your mentor said to you about when are you going to start living what you teach. And I'm sure that was playing in the back of your mind as well as you were determined to get home.
Yeah,
I mean, those words are powerful.
It was. And it was even like I remember the look on his face when he said that to me. I did, he was a very interesting character, Bob. But I remember there were times when it's almost like, like when you do something wrong when you're a kid and you get that look from your father,
Yes.
right? You're like, oh shit, I just fucked up,
Right.
right? It was that kind of look. He would communicate sometimes with a seriousness like, I'm not screwing around with you. This is very serious. And he was always challenging me anytime anything showed up in my personality that was basically an indication that I couldn't do something or I was being stopped by a circumstance, I would get that look. And it taught me to really, really understand that I have the power to change anything. But he pushed me to do it. He
Sure.
like I said before, he urged me. He urged me to really accept this for my life, because he's like, if you're going to do this, you have to live it. You can't just teach this.
Yeah.
You have to live this if you're going to be successful doing this.
100%. And that's what you urge your clients to do as well.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, yeah, no, I love that piece and I love those words. It seems like you always have these people who say these very impactful things to you in the moment, and then you are able to hear them. There's some people who come in to work with you that don't hear what you say, and then they just go off and do their own thing,
Right.
and they don't reach the success that maybe they would have had they stopped. So it's just really interesting to hear that, when are you going to live what you teach? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are maybe teaching, maybe they're teaching wealth creation in their own business, and yet they're living, month to month.
There's a ton of people out there that are doing that,
Yeah.
and it's unfortunate because the fact that they're doing it, that they're not living what it is that they're attempting to teach, they don't even understand how it's negatively impacting they don't understand why they have a lack of success. And it's like, well, you're not living it. Right? Every time you tell somebody to do something, you're 100% incongruent because you're not doing it yourself.
That's true. Yeah, love that. Well, in this particular episode, you mentioned that we have much more control of our own destinies than we think. We all have challenges and obstacles that we face, but every reason why I can't do something is verified based on the current reality we're living in.
Right.
Or we can see the obstacles as a point for us to press on. So the question I have is, how can a person get to the place where you were when you were trying to get home, where I'm not taking no for an answer, I'm going to press on, even though it sucks, even though it's hard, I'm just going to keep going?
You're asking me how?
Yeah, like how can well, maybe not how is the right word. It's more like, so I'm sitting here thinking I'm stuck. Everything sucks. I'm completely miserable. I need a change. So I want to get to a place where I can embrace the obstacles rather than looking them as here we go again, just another confirmation that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
It's the pity party. It's the woe is me. It's the victimhood. How can a person who may be listening to this, who might be in that situation, start to work their way or climb their way out of it?
This is a really great question. And here's the interesting thing about this. And everybody should really think about what I'm about to say here. If you're in, or anybody is in that kind of a situation, and you're telling me, I want to change this, and I say, go do this, whatever this might be, and you don't do it, you don't really want to change. Because the only way to actually change the circumstances for you to do something that you're uncomfortable doing. A lot of times it involves money. A lot of times it involves maybe dealing with negative people or toxic people, and it always is something that's uncomfortable.
Yeah, I was wondering why people say they want to change when they, like what you just said, a lot of people say, well, I really want to change this, and you give them every opportunity and they don't. So they don't really want to change that. Why is that?
They have a value conflict.
Value conflict. Got it.
It always comes down to a value conflict. So they want the result. We see ideas of success all around us, but we only see the end result. You're not programmed with how did the person actually get there. And then when you find out, if I want this result, I have to change this. I have to do things that are uncomfortable. I have to let people go in my life. I have to spend money to hire people to teach me. I have to study. I have to make phone calls. Like, there's all different kinds of things that we have to do that are uncomfortable. And then when you're faced with that and you're like, I'm not going to do it, right? It's because you value the comfort of where you are over the change for where you could be in the moment.
Sure.
And it will never change. It is just, I see people do it all the time. I used to do it. Like I was famous for that, most of my early life. And it came from a point of, a lot of it was out of ignorance. Like I just didn't know, and I didn't know that I didn't know. But once I started to learn, then it was consistently stepping into something that was uncomfortable every day, which was hard at first. But I think that if a person's going to make that easier, what they really need to do is they need to surrender to the process. We say that with people when they're going through Date with Your Dark Side. You have to surrender to the process. So they have to surrender, like your life is a process. And if you want that success in your life, it's a process in getting there, and you have to surrender to it, meaning that you have to accept whatever it is. Whatever it is that needs to be done is going to show up. And it's different for everybody because everybody has different stories and challenges and past situations that are affecting the reality that they're living in, that type of thing. But if you surrender to it, then you're not struggling in your head with the should I do it or should I not do it. You're dealing with the challenges of actually doing it. What do I have to learn? What do I have to do? That type of stuff. It is miserable to play that game in your mind of, should I do it? I know I should do it, but I'm not doing it. I'll do it tomorrow, but I don't do it. And then like that crazy game back and forth in the mind, it'll destroy a person.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
Yeah,
it's absolutely exhausting.
And it's so unproductive. If you're going to do something, just do it.
And the excitement of whatever it is that you want begins to diminish because you're just in the misery of it. And then you're like, how do I get that back? And people lose it when they do that all their life. It's very hard for some people to find that dream or the thing that they want that they're going to be enthusiastic or excited about actually going after.
Yeah, while we're on this with value conflicts, just real quick, is there like an identifier or a signifier to know if you are in a value conflict? Is it just results? Like I'm not getting my results, so I must have a value conflict. Is there any other markers to look at?
It's being stuck, right? If you're stuck, I always tell people if you're stuck, something that you're evaluating is not true. Like some part of the information that you're evaluating is not true. The universe doesn't hold anything back from us. It presents the truth all the time. If we have a value conflict, generally what happens is that our mind is focused on some part of our reality that is indicating why we can't do something, and that could be external or internal. So it could be an internal thing that's going on in your own head, or it could be an external problem. But when you only look at the facts of the problem, you're not seeing the whole truth, right?
Sure.
So then what you're evaluating is not 100% true. You're evaluating some things that are true. You're evaluating the facts around the problem, but you're not bringing in the overall truth that will allow you to move forward. And that's because you have an internal conflict that's going on. So what I say to a person then is, what are you resisting being, doing, or changing? Or be doing, having, or changing in your life? What is it you're resisting? Because you're resisting something. If you stop resisting it and surrender, then what ends up happening is the truth shows up. You allow yourself to see the truth, and you can make a different choice. But until you do that, you're not going to make a different choice because you can't see the truth. If I say, hey, coach with me, and here's how much it costs to coach, and you're like, I can't do it because I don't have the money. You're looking at your situation right now, and your situation indicates that you don't have the money, but that's not the whole truth because the money's here. What's required is that you make a decision, and that's for anything, right? If we're going to buy something in our life, it requires that we make a decision to do so. We don't need the money till we make the decision. The decision always comes first. But people who are stuck generally put the risk first. So they're looking at what could go wrong or why it won't work, and then they're saying, I can't do that, so they're making a decision not to based on that scenario. If they would just change that piece, they would watch what would seem like magic happen in their life, because they would start having different experiences that they've never had before, because there's a tremendous power that happens when we decide to do something. And that also means like you're going to follow through on it. It's not I decided I'm going to do it today and tomorrow I don't do it. It's a decision, I'm going to do it no matter what. And that's why I told the story about the snowstorm, because that was a decision that I made in my mind. I'm going home, period.
Right.
There was nothing that was going to tell me I couldn't go home. And then I just surrendered to it for the whole time I was in the airport.
I love that. It's such a lifestyle. It's like a mindset lifestyle. Like, I'm not just going to do this today. I'm going to do it today, tomorrow, the day after, the week after, and for years to come. This is my new normal. And I love that you brought that in. I also love that you brought up the power of truth. So you mentioned in the episode, the bigger the breakthrough or challenge we face, the greater the reward we receive.
Right.
And I love that. If you even just take anything away from this episode, just remember those powerful words that David mentioned, because when you're faced with a challenge, if you look at it as like, God damn, this is amazing. I'm glad I'm here. I'm grateful that I have this opportunity, and this is what I'm going to do. It's such a powerful way to look at challenges in the moment, and it allows for significant shifts if you can come from that perspective when you're up against it. So can you talk just a little bit more about the power of truth versus the reality that many people may be facing out there? Maybe their truth is not so great.
This is good too. So the interesting thing about this is that the actual power of it exists in our ability to choose. Human beings have this unique ability over all the life that we're aware of to make a conscious choice about something. Because we can do that, and because we have the ability to perceive things from a higher consciousness perspective, we can see the truth in something if we look for it, right? That means that whatever shows up is not necessarily the truth. It's just what's showing up. We have to look for the greater truth in everything, and then we bring the power of a new choice to it. If you're only programmed to see just the reality of something, of a problem, your choice is only directed based on what you can't do or what has to happen because of how you're perceiving that problem. But if you can see all sides of it and you can see the truth, now you're empowered to make a completely different decision. So that's why we tell people you literally can create your life any way that you want it. You're not stuck based on the situations or circumstances that you were raised in, or by whatever is going on in the world in the moment, as long as you understand that there's a higher truth. And then if you make choices from that place, you can change anything. So when we talk about, you can create your own economy, you can have an amazing partner in life, you can, like, whatever it is that you want. Yeah, it's limitless.
Yeah, I love that. That's gold. All right, let's wind this down. You talked about planning for the year ahead in this episode and how to design or create whatever you want in the year ahead. You know, you also mentioned we get one shot in this life, and more often than not, these beginning of the year changes, sadly enough, are very fleeting. Truly, here we are when this episode is being dropped. We're toward the end of January, and many, to probably most people, have already broken the word or the commitment they made to themselves for their New Year's resolutions. Can you offer up any advice to help someone refocus and just get back on track and start from where they are?
I think that we have to realize that we really do not sit down and really think about our life. I'm so grateful that somebody had me do that 25 years ago. He said to me, you need to really think about your life because you only get one shot at the apple. And what you don't want to happen is get to a place where it's too late to make a new choice. Because that place is there, like, we're all going to hit that place, whether we get sick or we get old or it's time to die. There's a place where the last moment in time is for us to make a new choice so that we could actually change something. Once we go past that, it's over, right? There won't be enough time or health or whatever in order to recreate something in your life. And most people sit around and they look at what their life is, what their past is, what's going on in the world or their community, or their family, and they make decisions based on that. They don't actually sit down and go, okay, listen, even like get a pad of paper, sit alone and really think to yourself, I can write down anything I want on this paper. I can create my life any way I want it. What do I really want? And you have to remove all the judgment of other people's ideas that are in your head and all the limitless thinking or the limited thinking, I can't be a multimillionaire, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. You got to sit down like if you had a magic wand and you could literally create your life any way you wanted to do it and write out what it is that you really want.
Absolutely. Perfect way to refocus yourself where we sit right here towards the end of January. So start thinking about how you can versus why you can't, because those self-judgments will kill you. So David, thank you so much for coming inside. This was great.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for listening to the Successful Mind podcast. And if you like what you heard and you want to know more, go to davidnagel.com/free stuff.